Looks like we're live. Hey, everybody. It's good to see you. So, hopping on Friday. I don't do a lot of lives here on YouTube and thought I would remedy that. I got a lot of new subscribers recently. And I wanted to say hello, introduce myself. Thank you. I know many of you are coming from sessions that I've held recently, which have been a lot of fun, honestly. I've been doing a lot of events hosted through Eventbrite. So if you're a creator in the space and you do a lot of online stuff, you should consider doing that. You should consider going to Eventbrite. It's the platform's a little wonky. A couple of things that I would wish that they would change, but you know what? They do a great job over there. So they promote small channels like mine and give guys like me a platform to educate and help transform. Like in my particular case, I like working with small business owners, solopreneurs, people who really don't have an ability to maybe take the time to educate themselves the way that they would want to educate themselves. So I know I have a small channel. I've only got, I'm bumping 2,200 subscribers, which is great. I was at 2,200 for a minute and then a couple people dropped off. That's okay. It's a vanity metric to me anyway. Like it's about impact. It's not, it's not so much the subscriber count, but I appreciate every single one of you that does come on and support the channel. So I want to come on here for just a few minutes and support you guys. I did a strategic planning session today, which I had to kind of do on the fly because my original session that I had, it somehow got corrupted and I couldn't open it. So I usually go on about an hour prior to the event and just make sure my slides are in order, and it would not open. So rebooted, changed it, and it was just corrupt. I could not do it. And I was like, and normally I keep backups of these. Well, the backup that I had was from an older session and it was wonky and it was kind of disconnected. So I did the best I could with what I had in a short period of time, but I managed to get to the main points. But the interesting thing about that is, number one, obviously keep your backups. Make sure you have backups of backups. And I have since done that. This one was, I think it was saved under an old version of PowerPoint, and I'm not sure why, but anyway, so I went in and I was doing the strategic planning session. And for those of you who are engaging any sort of strategic planning going into 2026, I really want to encourage you. There's just a couple main points that I want you to pay attention to, because when it comes to strategic planning, there's just a couple things that you have to consider. And a lot of times people are engaging, hey there, everybody who's just joined. When you're engaging in strategic planning, a lot of times there's this, I don't know how to say this nicely, but there's this affinity towards making it more complicated than it needs to be. And I like to break things down a little bit more simply, just because I think when you make things too complicated, it becomes an excuse to not do it, where excessive planning becomes another form of procrastination. So does that resonate with any of you guys out there? I know it resonates with me. So that's why I like to try to keep things reasonably simple and just a few points here. But one of the things that I do when I do strategic planning is I try to engage specifically in engaging in a timeline. And that timeline, I just break it down into nice and simple. I'm going to go over that here in just a few minutes. But the thing is that when all of the different things, now, most of the time when I'm engaging in strategic planning, I want to break that down into three main elements around the core purpose, the core values, and the client avatar. And the core purpose and core values and client avatar are defining what is going on specifically in the business. So if you're thinking of that from a business perspective and you're thinking, okay, well, what's the core purpose of the business? That's really important, because if you don't have the core purpose figured out, it doesn't magically get more clear by the time you start conveying that out in your marketing, in your advertising, in your networking, in your conversations with just in general. Like, here's a really good litmus test on that, is start to ask people who are in your immediate circle what it is that you do. And if they can't really answer that in a good way or in a concise way, then you're probably not all that clear in your core purpose. And your core purpose really should be about what specifically you do and what problems you specifically solve. It was interesting. I had a great conversation. This was years ago. I had a great conversation with someone who was an insurance person and they sold insurance, and they had been selling insurance for a really long time. And they got telling me that their neighbor bought insurance from one of their competitors. And I was like, oh, wow, what'd you say? They're like, and they were pretty salty about it. Like, don't you think I sell this type of insurance? And it was like a life insurance policy. And that person never made the connection. The neighbor never made the connection that that person also sells life insurance. I was like, well, whose fault is that? That's not your neighbor's fault. That's your fault, right? So it's just interesting that you have these conversations. And I apologize if you guys are making comments on here. I can't see them. I'm broadcasting this through StreamYard, and if you guys are, I don't know if anybody out there has ever shared. I'm going to put a comment in there, see if you guys can maybe respond back, because this is new for me in terms of using StreamYard. So I'm just going to say hello and see if you guys can maybe respond back to that, because I don't see where it actually shows up in YouTube. So I apologize if you're commenting and I just don't see it. But anyway, so if you're watching, I see a few people hopping on. Just say where you're from, and oh, there we are. Hey, Jessica, glad you could join me. So where are you joining from tonight? So the interesting thing about this, I'm getting 3 highs. Hi, Jessica. Hi. All right. So the interesting thing about this, about strategic planning, is obviously knowing your core purpose specifically. So if you're joining, like if you're like what your strategic, if you're whatever business you happen to be in and what problems you specifically solve, it's really important that you know that, and that's conveyed often in your message. And I see this oftentimes with entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, where they have all these different things that they're doing. They're in like 7 different businesses. And this was interesting because I had a great question today from this gal who lives out in Connecticut. And she says, what if I do have multiple things that I'm doing? How am I going to have a core purpose that's defined, but has all these different things that I do? And I get that. And the answer that I came up with is what I run into all the time with how many entrepreneurs out there that are watching this right now that have multiple things that you do, right? Or how many different times you come out of a shower with different ideas on your mind. I can tell you that that's true for me for sure. So how do you boil that down into one solid core purpose when you have all these different ideas every time you get out of the shower? Anybody else out there? Like, am I the only one? I know I'm not. I see you guys out there, but let me know, like, what kind of ideas do you have from one moment to the next? You have all these different ideas, and that's fine. So when I want you to think about is when you have multiple different core purposes, think about your client avatar. Think of how many different avatar that you might have. And this is the example that I gave her. A lot of times I have people come to me who are in the real estate world, right? And I wrote my first book called The Time Wealthy Investor for specifically mom and pop investors, right? So these were people who are rental property owners, they were landlords, right? And they wanted to grow their rental portfolio. So because they want to grow their rental portfolio, they're looking for people to sell their properties to them. Okay, so they're looking for buyers. So that's a different avatar for people that you're trying to attract to sell your property to, right? To buy your property from, versus people you're trying to rent your properties to. Those are 2 different businesses in my mind, because they're 2 different avatars. They're 2 different types of individuals. And when you confuse those, that's when it gets really, really confusing among everybody else. Because when you do have all these multiple businesses going on, it should be segmented by avatar, by the type of person that you're looking for. And that's how you start to segment. When you have these 2 different purposes for these 2 different avatar, to me, those are 2 different businesses. And I would run those as 2 separate businesses. And the interesting thing, there was one time I called a hotel. There was a hotel ownership group, and they had, hi, Mimi. Good to see you. Where are you joining me from tonight? So, let me know where you're from. So the interesting thing was I called this hotel. They had charged something wonky on my credit card. So they said, oh, you need to call the main office. So I called the hotel. They said, call the main office. I called the main office, and I'm calling a what was basically a small real estate investment company who handled like all sorts of different in property investments, property management, and they were also overseeing this hotel group. So for a guy like me, I get it. I understand it because I run across those types of businesses all the time. But as an average consumer, I would be extremely confused in terms of who was on, who I was calling at that moment in time. So that's why I would say for you, like, don't be worried about segmenting this up between different businesses. So let's talk about strategic planning for a hot second. So in terms of strategic planning, how are you, what are you specifically looking to do over the next 12, 24, 36 months? I don't agree with planning too far out beyond 36 months, and not saying that you can't have goals out beyond 36 months, but when it comes to like a 12-month or 36-month timeline, I like those short horizons because otherwise it becomes a book that I'm going to write someday, right? I have a book that I'm writing right now, right? Not planning on writing, but I'm writing it right now. And I have to, I'm also in a PhD program, which is right. Like that could take years to finish up. I've got other things that I want to do. I'm looking at maybe starting a mentorship program for people who are maybe don't want full one-to-one coaching at the intense level that I offer. So a mentorship might be something that's a little bit easier for them, certainly lower cost. So something along those lines I'm thinking about doing, right? And that's going to be something between now and the next 12 months. But I don't want to overload myself with these massive goals over the next 12 months that I think I have to get finished. I would rather have a 36-month timeline that has a really, really big stretch goal and a 12-month goal that's definitely more doable, right? So in other words, if what I like to think of as my 36-month goal might be my 5x or 10x, my stretch, and my 12-month goal might be like 20 to 30%. Because realistically, if I'm going to be 20 to 30% more than I am today, that's quite a bit of improvement. Where if I'm looking at 5x or 10x within the next 36 months, that's life altering. And this is where I have found is that most people massively overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year and vastly underestimate what they can accomplish in 3 or 5 years. And again, I don't like anything beyond a 36-month timeline just because there's too many variables. So this is when I run across people who've got these, crazy, like, oh, that's part of my 10-year plan or part of my 25-year plan. I'm like, dude, you're 60 now. Like, how long are you going to live? So that's why I say, I think the other thing too, is when you have a timeline that's too far out, you can disguise and hide inside inactivity. And it's like having, oh yeah, I want to have 6-pack abs. In 4 years, I'm going to have 6-pack abs. I'm like, really? It's going to take 4 years. Right. So this is the sort of thing when I look at strategic planning. So here, I'll mention this here. I really don't want to make this a big, long video, but the thing that I noticed is that when you have a strategic planning session, I like to think of like the 3-year planning session. And then I put that down in terms of revenues, profits, and metrics. So if I'm looking at this from a business vision perspective and I'm really creating something that I want, where I'm looking to monetize, and I'm thinking about, okay, in year 3, that means in month 25 to month 36, I want to start to think about what my revenues are going to be in year 3. All right. So between now and 12 months, those are my 12-month revenues, profits, metrics. I don't really worry about year 2 because year 2 is what I'm going to learn. I'm going to apply my learning from year 1 to year 2. So now my year 3 becomes kind of like that, my mid-year goal, right? My 2-year goal. But basically that's where I apply my learning, is in year 2 from what I learned in year 1. So in year 1, I'm going to be putting stuff out there. There's going to be a lot of stuff I'm going to be failing at. I'll give you a great example. For those of you who are like, oh my gosh, I'm so worried about failing. You know what? Let me just tell you something. I'm watching my watch count right on here. Okay. So I want to put this out there for people who might be feeling like, man, I just don't feel like I'm getting any traction. Okay. Let me show you my real-time failures right now. Okay. Right now I have one person watching. One person. At one point I had 9 people watching. I watched it go up and watched it go all the way back down. It went to 0. This person just dropped off. Okay. If I was hitching my wagon to that number of people watching and then jumping off and then watching and jumping off, I would never finish this video. I would be attaching my self-worth to that number. And I'm just letting you know, I stopped doing that. In fact, I don't even really want to pay attention to that number. Like I like when people are on, I can say hello, I can engage. I say hello. They don't say hello back, right? That's okay. But I stopped hitching my wagon to that number. And I want to encourage you not to worry about that either, because who knows what's going on in their life? Maybe they're like, oh, hey, Mark's on. And rather than say he's a jerk and I hate my face, which is the conversation going on in my head, I'm saying, hey, they're probably busy. Or you know what? Maybe it's a topic that they're just not ready for. Or you know what? Maybe it's a topic they're going to come back to because right now it's just not a good time, right? I have no idea what's going on in their life right now. And I have people literally across the world that, and I'm not saying that in an arrogant way, I'm saying like across the world, because I've had subscribers from Ghana and subscribers from France and the UK. And I'm here in this little town in the Midwest and doing my thing that I do. And I have these subscribers in different parts of the world, which I think is pretty cool. So, you know, whether you're in, you know, Paris, Texas, or Paris, Illinois, or Paris, France, I might be reaching someone right now. But the point is that I'm not hitching my wagon. I'm not hitching my wagon to my self-worth based on that number of people who are watching or not watching at any given time. So that's the sort of thing that I run into all the time. And when I'm not worried about failure, I'm just looking at all these different ways of something that is either interesting or not interesting, and people are either going to come on, they're going to watch, or they're not going to watch. That's okay, right? To me, the subscriber count in YouTube is a vanity metric, and I know that people are watching it because I'm watching the watch hours go up as I put more and more helpful content out there for people. So that's where I want to say, I want you to look at, when you're looking at your 36-month business vision, again, that's month 25 to month 36, that's within your 3 years. I want you to think about that for what are your revenues going to be in year 3? What are your revenues going to be in year 3? And that's going to be a stretch goal. I want that to be uncomfortable. I want you to be like, man, if I hit that number, it's really would change my life. I want your 36-month to be a stretch goal. Then I want you to think of your profits, right? Think RPM, revenues, profits, metrics. So in that year 3, what are your profits going to be? What are your profits going to be in year 3, right? And I'm going to talk about that in here in a minute, about what number that needs to be. So when you're thinking about profits, you're thinking about, again, your revenues minus your expenses and what your profits are going to be in year 3. So then when you think of your metrics are what you're going to, like, that's the numbers you're going to hit, right? There could be your level of activity. It could be the number of widgets you sell. It could be it could be just simply number of subscribers, right, to a channel, but it could also be the amount of activity that you do every single day. So this is where I want you to think about that. Like, okay, these are the number of sales that I'm hitting. These are the number of people that I'm reaching out to, but it's also like you don't have control over the number of sales you have. That's a lag metric. That's as a result of your actions and activities. But your actions and activities was what you can directly control. So how many seminars are you going to put on? I put on a seminar on average, one every day for the last 3 weeks, an hour long or better seminar for every day for the last 3 weeks. And I had some of them, I had 70, 80 people sign up. Some of them I had well over 100 that signed up for their seminars. I think there was one session. In fact, I can look here real quick. There was one session I had. Let me see. I'm just looking on my numbers here. So these are my numbers. I can share my screen here real quick so you guys can see this. These are the past events. So let me see if I can share my screen. You guys can see this, but so, and I'm showing you this just so you can see the numbers in terms of how these work. But let me share the screen. So what I'm going to show you is a number of people who signed up for different sessions with me, and then is that gonna? I think I might have to put it on a different screen. All right, I'll have to do. Well, let me figure this out. Chrome tab. Here we go. All right. Yeah, that's what I want. All right. That'll work. All right. So what you're seeing here, these are the past events that I have had on Eventbrite. So out of I had 151 or 199 people that you could possibly sign up for strategic planning for business owners. This was today. I had 61 people sign up. So let me scroll down. I had some pretty high numbers in the second week of November. I had 117 people sign up for Write and Publish Your Book as a Business Owner. That's a really popular one. Business Plans 101 almost sold out. That was 172 people signed up for Business Plans 101. There was a ton of people that signed up for that one. Scrolling down, is your networking not working? I had 90 people sign up for that one. Now look at this one. Ask Me Anything, Q&A with a strategist. I had 17 people. I had 12-week insider marketing secrets. I had 12 people sign up for that one. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is because I don't want you feeling like, oh man, like, you know, I'm not getting the numbers that I feel like I need to be getting. And I just don't want you to feeling discouraged. Go out there, throw stuff up and see what sticks. And when stuff is not working, then just adjust your activity. Don't get hung up about the numbers. I had usually on those numbers that now, for example, what I can normally see is people sign up and then usually somewhere between 25 to 30% will show up if it's a free event. And that's pretty typical. My number is right around 25%. And then, so then I'll get the 25%, usually when I first start out, there's like 3 or 4 people on there, maybe 10, and then it'll climb and then it'll fall back off. So I always wonder, like, what do they think they're signing up for? Like when they get in there, if I don't grab them immediately, if they don't walk into something where literally there's an explosion every 3 minutes, that they're just going to lose interest and drop off. So it's not like a YouTube video like this or YouTube Live where you're jumping on just to kind of get a sense of what we're talking about and then people are leaving. That's not it at all. It's like they've signed up for this and then they jump on, they stay for 2 minutes and then they jump off. So I don't see it in real time in terms of who it is, just like in YouTube Live. I have no idea who's jumping on, jumping off. All I know is that all I know is who signed up for it, right? And I can see who actually did join live and who didn't join live. So that's the only thing that I can see. But I can't tell that until even afterwards. And I don't worry about that, right? But what that tells me in real time is the information relevant to them in that moment in time? Is that information interesting to them? Because there's not too long. There's only too boring, or there's only just too just uninteresting. And if it's not interesting, if it's not engaging, then again, it's just too boring. People aren't going to watch it. They're not going to read it. They're not going to read your content. I published a 300-page book called The Time Wealthy Advantage. And people like, man, aren't you worried about publishing a 300-page book, around being time wealthy? I'm like, no, because I'm a good writer and people read it and people have read the book. And again, I think I've gotten better as a writer, but shorter books, I want to go to shorter form books because they feel like the attention spans are too low. That's not true at all. I think the people's tolerance for bad content has gotten very, very low. Right. So again, I just want to encourage you on that. So when you're looking at again, this is about strategic planning. When you're looking at strategic plans, again, you're thinking about that 3-year business vision, the 36-month, the 12-month, and then the 36-month, which is revenues, profits, metrics. That's what I wanted to talk about. So here's what I want to make this point. Okay. So when you're coming up with your 12-month business vision, okay, so 36-month and 12-month business visions, both of them you think of revenues, profits, and metrics. When you're thinking about your 12-month business vision, now when I'm going to use a phrase here called profit margin and profit margin percentage. So what that is, and I teach a session. In fact, if you'd like to go on YouTube, you can find it. I uploaded it here to YouTube, but it's financial literacy for business owners. And if you go in there, if you really don't understand balance sheets or income statements, I walk you through all of that. In less than an hour, you can have a really good understanding of what that is. Hey, sup, Samuel? Good to see you. So if you don't understand that, then you can figure out like what a profit margin percentage is. So what I'm saying is when I'm talking about profit margin percentage, let's say that you have $100 worth of sales, you have $20 worth of profit. So you have $80 worth of expenses. And then so you have $20 worth of profit. That would be 20 divided by 100, which would be 20% profit margin. Okay. So thank you, Samuel. You're the best too. Where are you coming from today, Samuel? Where are you at? So when you got $100 worth of sales and $20 worth of profit, you have a 20% profit margin. That's what I'm talking about. So that's a 20% profit margin percentage. Generally, your profit margin percentage it declines as your business grows. So I'm saying if in year one you have a 20% profit margin percentage, I would not plan on having a 20% profit margin percentage in year 3. If you can, that's great. But generally, you're not going to have that. You're subbed and liked. Very good. Well, welcome, Samuel. You're from Malaysia. Very good. Well, it's nice to meet you. So what I would say is, what would it be if you could plan on it for being 20%? That'd be great. But generally, profit margin percentages always decline. So that's why I'm saying, like, in year 1, I would like to see like a 50% profit margin. And then maybe in year 3, you might have a 35 or 40% profit margin. But margins always compress as your business grows. So I don't want you being impractical about what you're thinking, what your year 3 is going to look like. So let's talk really quickly. So you got 36-month business vision. You got your 12-month business vision. Both of those are defined by revenues, profits, and metrics. Then I carve up my 12-month business vision into 90-day projects, right? Break those up into quarters. And really, my 90-day projects are broken up into monthly goals, weekly goals, and then what I refer to as a daily 5. My daily 5 are the 5 most critical things that I'm going to do that are going to move me towards my 12-month and 36-month business vision. So that by carving it up that way, again, you start with 36-month business vision, revenues, profits, metrics. And you have a 12-month business vision, again, revenues, profits, metrics. Then you break that down. You break your 12-month down into 90-day projects. So you have 4 90-day projects, and you chunk those things down into monthly goals, weekly goals, and then you break down those weekly goals into daily 5. And the daily 5 are your actions and activities that move you towards that goal. So your only place where you're delineating your actions and activities is in your daily 5. So if you're planning on starting a business, if you're planning on doing, or you're in a business right now or maybe you're thinking about writing a book, or maybe you're thinking about doing some sort of big project, chunk it down like that into just small, manageable, bite-sized chunks. And then every day, plan on doing 5 things that are going to move the needle towards your weekly goals, your monthly goals, your 90-day project, your 12-month business vision, and then, of course, your 36-month business vision. All right. So that's it. I'm going to go ahead and put the fries in the bag and wrap this one up. I don't do a lot of these. I'll probably do more of these in the future. So if you've got topics that you would like me to hit, again, there's plenty of videos on the channel. Again, feel free to like and subscribe if this is the sort of thing that is your jam. If you don't like it, make sure you hit the button twice just to make sure you just don't like it. I'm just kidding. All right. Have a great rest of your day, guys. We'll see you guys next time.